I am Kitty Hollywood. Today's review is of United Artists' 1951 ode to unwashedness, The African Queen. Produced by Sam Spiegel, directed by John Huston. The film is based on the novel by C.S. Forester. The screenplay is by James Agee and John Huston. More on that later. The music's by Alan Gray. The cinematography is by Jack Cardiff. The costumes are by Doris Langley Moore. It stars Katharine Hepburn, Humphrey Bogart and Robert Morley. It's the tale of a missionary spinster and a rum-soaked captain and their impossible notion to head down the river to take out the Germans who destroyed her African home. Rapids, organ playing and leeches ensue.
Yeah, that ought to work. When we ram into it, the ends of these nails will hit the percussion caps and shoot the bullets into the gelatin.
Oh, Charlie, you're wonderful.
Can't put them in the cylinders yet. They're pretty tricky. We'll put them in when we're ready to start.
It will be dark by then. Do you think that you can do it in the dark?
Well, that's a case of have to.
Now, this is a very, very famous film, and not just because of the beautiful interplay between Hepburn and Bogart, but because of the pretty much notorious tale of the making of the film. John Huston was a director who largely, most of his work involved adapting other literary texts. So, by this point in time, he had made The Maltese Falcon, which was his directorial debut. He'd made The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Key Largo and the Asphalt Jungle. He was intelligent, overbearing, demanding, mercurial, and very possibly brilliant. He had come up with the idea of filming The African Queen in Africa. Normally, a nice little bit of rear projection and some in-studio scenery would have done the piece, but no, he was going to shoot in Africa by hook or by crook. He had pretty much no funding. So he charmed the money people, the Wolf brothers. He charmed Hepburn and Bogart. He charmed Sam Spiegel. He charmed writer Peter Viertel into coming to Africa with him and finishing the script while he was there. Now, Peter Viertel was so scarred by the experience of this that he went on a few years later to write the novel White Hunter, Black Heart, which was in turn adapted by Clint Eastwood and turned into the film of the same name in the 80s. It was heavily, heavily influenced by his experiences writing The African Queen. I don't know why I don't know why Viertel doesn't have on-screen credit for this. It would appear that they fell out, but look, he certainly contributed enormously to the fame of this film. So, well, what went wrong? Everything. The boat, The African Queen, was too small to take all of the very large, hefty Technicolor cameras that they required, so a raft had to be built around The African Queen to have these cameras on it. There was a separate administrator's launch. There were separate rafts with mock-ups of various parts of The African Queen on it so that they could film from particular angles in greater detail. They would set off down the river, the Ruwiki River, all these boats, and they'd film until submerged logs or ants or overhanging branches or hysterically laughing African people who thought what they were doing was nuts, or a lack of a nice little place to get lunch or toilets, or pretty much everything would crop up and cause them trouble. At one point in time, The African Queen sank to the bottom of the river and they had to get it up again without very much in the way of hydraulics or machinery or technology, which took them a number of days. Katharine Hepburn, who was utterly stalwart and determined, actually wrote a book in the 80s called The Making of the African Queen, or how I went to Africa with Bogart, Bacall and Huston and almost lost my mind. And one cannot blame her for almost losing her mind, but I'm glad that she didn't. Now, Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall had been married for about 5 years when this film was made, and she went to the Congo and to Uganda with them. She apparently became quite a mama hen for the production, and she would be making sandwiches, she looked after them, she contributed greatly to the camaraderie of the entire crew. At one point in time, they all became hideously ill, with the exception of John Huston and Humphrey Bogart, and that was apparently due to the almost exclusive consumption of hard liquor. In fact, Humphrey Bogart said something along the lines of, "All I ate was baked beans, canned asparagus and Scotch whiskey." So, whenever a fly or a mosquito bit Huston or me, it would fall down dead. Katharine Hepburn apparently looked at them, drank her bottled water, until she discovered it was the bottled water that was tainted, in which case she hit the floor too. There is one scene quite early on in the film which she's playing the organ inside a chapel, and apparently she was filming this scene going, "I really don't feel very well," and throwing up into a bucket off the side of the organ and getting on and doing another take. Oh. She also suffered from the lack of proper toileting facilities. She said she was the daughter of a urologist and these things matter, so it was quite a challenge to her. She also carried around a full-length mirror for costuming purposes, and people scoffed at her apparently, and then it broke in half, so she carried around the bigger half, but in the end she said everybody used it. Humphrey Bogart was so horrified by the leeches that they were going to put onto him that they had to contrive some rubber leeches instead, and the trained leeches went on the trainer's chest rather than Humphrey Bogart's chest. The ending of the original tale was much bleaker.
Alle Mann an Deck, der Hinrichtung beizuwohnen.
In Ordnung.
Los! Hände fesseln! Seil straff!
But Sam Spiegel, the producer, was already so nervous about the prospect of presenting audiences with a film in which two old people fell in love and went down the river on a boat, that the thought of them doing this and dying at the end of the film was just too much for him to contemplate. So the endings changed. Potentially ludicrously, but does it really matter? So watch The African Queen. Watch it for the beautiful linens. Watch it for the lovely interplay between Hepburn and Bogart. And watch it because when you're sitting there watching this downpour of a film, you will know that you are inside and you are cozy watching television, and it makes you enjoy it all the more. The African Queen, 10 out of 10.